Everything about China comes on a massive scale. As the economy grows, so too does the middle class, and they're well-heeled and they want to travel. Every year, 40 million of them, twice our population, head overseas. The question for Australian tourism chiefs is how to get a larger slice of that market. Here's Emily Stewart.
There's nothing like it, is there?
Tourism Australia hopes its latest advertising campaign will attract more Chinese tourists down under.
The number of Chinese who travel overseas is twice the population of Australia, 40 million people. It's growing exponentially because there are economic growth of 10% per annum.
Visitors from China are Australia's fourth largest inbound market and one of the fastest growing, along with the Middle East and India. Tourism Australia has a marketing budget of $130 million this year, but will spend only $6.6 million marketing to China. In July, the Prime Minister Kevin Rudd announced the government would spend $30 million over the next 3 years to attract Chinese visitors.
Australia would expect the Chinese to become, if not number one, at least number two market in terms of visitors by 2020.
For years, China has controlled where its citizens are allowed to travel. Australia was the first Western country to receive approved destination status in 1999. In the 2009-2010 financial year, around 380,000 Chinese visitors came to Australia, up 40,000 on the previous year. And they spent more here than visitors from any other country, putting more than $2 billion into the Australian economy last financial year, up $400 million. But Australia now has competition for the tourist dollar, with the Chinese government permitting travel to the European Union and the US. The federal government says it's not concerned and the Chinese market is big enough to share.
We've always got to be mindful. It's an increasingly competitive world. But very confident of the future for the Chinese market.
Tourism Research Australia predicts arrivals from China will increase over the next decade at an average rate of 8% every year to reach almost 800,000 people by 2019. But some experts think the competition will be too much for Australia.
The Chinese traveller to Australia, for example, is really not into the beach culture. I do wonder whether we can maintain the growth that we've enjoyed thus far.
Airlines share the government's confidence in increasing visitor numbers. China's Southern Airlines says demand will increase because Australia is perceived as accessibly close, friendly, economical and a safe destination. The company is increasing its direct flights to Australia and has negotiated an agreement with Virgin Blue for domestic travel. Chinese visitors usually travel in a tour group because of restrictions placed on individual travellers by both the Chinese and Australian governments. And some believe these restrictions are holding back growth in the backpacking segment.
They tend to need to have a fairly good income to have family members still in China and to pay a bond.
The government doesn't agree.
There is a growing trend, particularly amongst younger Chinese, to want to do their own thing, and that will evolve over time.
The federal government will hold a China forum in Cairns next year to further develop Australia's tourism strategy.